So welcome everybody. I'm sitting here working on some Fractured Colony miniatures. That's my other line of tabletop gaming miniatures that I periodically do shameless self-promotions for on the show. And I figured, well, I could sit here, work on the miniature, and be distracted by YouTube, but why not try and be that distraction for other people? So, haven't been live on the internet on my own channel in a very long time, so we'll see how this goes. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, audio sounds good. Just been playing, like I said, brand new setup here, relatively new computer, but I think everything is working out quite all right. So let me jump over to Blender here, and while I'm working on this guy, if you want to jump in the chat, if anyone is happen to be hanging around, feel free to ask some questions about Blender modeling for gaming miniatures, and I will try to do the best that I can to answer them. We'll see how this goes. So the guy I'm working on today here is my pit bull. It's called, the PB3X pit bull from my Fractured Colony Miniatures line. I ran a Kickstarter for the other faction, the Coordinator Armed Forces. It's been a while now. It was September 2023, I think, and I'm finally getting around to making the next batch, and hopefully I can crank these guys out even faster. But this guy here is the main battle tank for the other faction I haven't formally introduced yet. I think I mentioned the Equatorial Compact in the short little blurb of the game last time when I sent that out with the Kickstarter stuff. But this is actually the main battle tank for them. I have sitting over here, I've showed off a few times on the live show, this is the Avalon self-powered artillery. Let me actually jump back to the live camera. So this is one of their other Equatorial compact miniatures. It's going to be one of the other new ones that is going to be in this set, along with this little guy here. This is the Lionel class hunter-killer drone. This is actually for the Coordinator Armed Forces, and it's basically a tiny little vehicle-launched drone designed to lock on and destroy vital parts of armored vehicles. All right, let's get back to the actual modeling here, and you can kind of see how I go about my process. I've already got mostly the, what do you call this thing, the hull of the tank mostly done. In the back here is actually some of the designs that I work off of. So I do like side sketches, top sketches, and kind of highlight some of the interesting features. For this vehicle, I didn't actually do like a detailed drawing to where I could build right on top of in Blender. Sometimes I do that with things, sometimes I don't. It kind of depends on whether it makes sense to me in the 3D world or not. Some simpler things like a tank, it doesn't matter a whole lot. For like, you know, some of the more complex starships that I've used, some of the weird ones are Kaladeshi, I've done that because you got geometry that isn't always super intuitive when you're thinking about 3D models. But anyway, all right, so I actually gonna get working on the back part of the vehicle right now. There's an engine grate. You can see it kind of ID'd back there in the model. It's gonna go somewhere around here. I'm not 100% sure as to what I'm doing with it just quite yet. What did I apparently put some sort of weird thing right here. Thought that looked cool at the time. So why don't I build that? So, this is gonna annoy me. So, okay. So number 3 view in Blender is being covered up by my reference image. So I gotta remember to use like quarter 3 view. Or control 3 view, I mean. And I can do the opposite view. So let me just go ahead. I'm gonna drop in a cube. Where'd you go, cube? Oh, ah. Ah, geez, where did I lost my cube? I swear I know what I'm doing. It's like even sometimes you can get turned around in Blender pretty easily if you're not paying attention to what you're doing here. Okay. So I do have like this double sloped armor here as a design feature for some reason. There's a lot of things where it's like, it kind of looks cool to do it that way. So that's sometimes what I usually end up doing. Yeah, it looks about right. I don't have to be super precise with these modeling. I'm like, that looks about right, and 3D printing kind of handles it from there. I think this part would probably be actually attached to the hull, so this little design feature I'm working on would not be like something you glue on, because these miniatures here for the Equatorial Compact, I've learned a few things when it came to making like the Bracer main battle tank and the Archer back there, which had a lot of pieces to it. There's going to be fewer pieces with these because I'm just going to rely on a little bit more support material. In the past, I was like, let's do as little support material as possible. But right now, it's like, you know, more support material in some places is not a bad thing, and it makes assembly a lot easier. In particular, one of the most annoying features, at least for me, when it came to the older vehicles, the kind of overhangs here that will hold on the armor panels. Let me actually get the bracer back over here. These side armor things, the tread covers, those were fairly obnoxious to assemble, I'll be honest with you. So they're going to be modeled into the hull for the Equatorial Compact vehicles, and they actually work a lot better. They're just modeled there as a little bit of support material to remove, and then you go ahead and you glue the treads in place because the treads still print better when they're laid down flat on the bed. And yeah, it will work a lot better that way. So anyway, back to random arbitrary detail, because science fiction is all about totally arbitrary detail. Like it is kind of an odd thing when you think about, like, a lot of gaming miniatures just have really weird amounts of extra detail. I mean, 40K with their skulls everywhere is really big with this. When you actually look at most modern vehicles for military stuff, they're not super detailed for assorted reasons. There's actually good reasons why they don't want to do that, especially like on naval vessels and things. But, you know, it's not about reality, it's about what looks cool. So it doesn't hurt to go ahead and just stick on a bunch of things. Yes, I did my counting right. So I can just go ahead and extend that up. And let me, just for whatever reason, add bevels over here. Oh. I don't know why it looks cool. Actually, let's add bevels to all of them, see how it looks. That's not that. That is bevels. The thing about some like adding bevels to these smaller details, because this guy's going to be an FDM, FFF designed model, is they don't always look super awesome with those printers because they'd be like 2 lines of detail, you know, but yeah, they can look cool. And if you really want to be adventurous, I guess you could print this guy in resin. Good luck with that one. But yeah. Oh, hey, Ryan's hanging out over there. Hey, Ryan. Yeah, I thought nothing else to do right now, so I thought I'd just jump on and try out a streaming setup and see if it works all right in case I ever want to use it more often in the future. So let me see here. Let's go 1, 2, 3. I'm doing about 3 millimeters, those 3 millimeters or so in from that side, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing over here. Let's see, we're at minus 470. What would that be? Minus, wait, is it 0? Okay. Minus 473-72. There we go. So there's some of the weird detail for the engine vents in the back of the tank. I'm going to go ahead and add something else back here. I kind of had, looked like I had, I don't know, I'm not sure what I really had. There isn't, what did I write back there? Rear cargo, oh, that's referring to the turret. Engine unit. So let's see here. There needs to be like a combination vent and like a, some sort of access panel to repair the engines. Let me get the Griffin over here because it's kind of funny. So the Griffin actually has two little, let me actually bring up the big camera so you can kind of see what I'm pointing at here because it's really tiny details. The Griffin has two little engine panels here on the very back. I can't even see them, it's so dark. It's hold it over here. The running gag that I came up with that is some military vehicles have a reputation of being an unmitigated disaster to try to work on for assorted reasons. And the Griffin is one of those. It has those two small access doors. You got to reach in there to fix all the hover system. I just kind of did that intentionally to drive people crazy. I don't think I've ever mentioned that before, but that's why they're so small like that. So let me design something similar on the back that's, like I said, a combination of a vent as well as like an access panel that'd be for maintaining the engine of the tank. And for that, I'm basically just going to drop in random geometry. There's not really a lot to this. These miniatures are just distorted cubes on top of distorted cubes on top of sometimes sloped cubes. Let's see here. Where is the center of the vehicle? What I probably should do is just make it symmetrical. Whoopsie-doodle. Let's do that. So I could try to go ahead and like make each side exactly correct, or I'm just going to go ahead and apply the Blender's mirror modifier because that just makes life a little bit easier. Oh, Ryan just noticed the flower cup. Yes. That's been up there for the past like year and a half there, Ryan. That flower cup up there. I don't mind getting distracted. So let me bring the camera back up. Ryan's talking about this thing right up here. It's probably, oftentimes I bet I have the camera cut off. That's why you can't see it. Normally the camera's kind of just barely showing this shelf. I got a little bit zoomed out today for whatever reason. Ryan got me that. It's Tales of Valhalla in there as like a Christmas present joke a couple of years ago, because way back when the Tabletop Battlefield was a podcast, some 15 years ago almost, more than that. Let's see, 2007, more than that, about 17 years ago at this point, we would all have cups of water to drink from. And for whatever reason, I had like a plastic flower cup. I don't know why, maybe my roommate had it. Something, and Ryan would often get that, and he would make a joke about why we kept giving him the flower cup, and it became a meme. That's the basic story behind that thing right up there. So that became a joke, and it sits up there, and yeah, that's why that's up there. Okay, so let's get back to this thing. Oh, make sure I've noticed if I don't have Blender selected when I start pressing my keyboard buttons, weird things tend to happen. So I gotta make sure I have Blender selected before I start hitting buttons. Otherwise it might end the stream, change how things look, and it becomes a bit of a disaster pit. All right, modifier. Let's do a mirror modifier here. Where is that now? There, it's hiding there. Is that just gonna let Blender pretty much do exactly the opposite whatever I do on one side. It just makes your life so much easier. Let's see here. Actually, yeah, let's do that. And this piece will also likely be glued in, will be attached to the hull as well. So I can just go ahead and hide it completely within the hull, because right now it's not. You can see the vertex floating up there, and that's a problem. But I'll get to that in just a moment. If I design it right, you're going to need very little or almost no support on the back here anyway to support the extra detail. And that's just easier. There's a lot of things I do. It's like, you know, a little bit of support's not going to kill anything at all. It's just going to make things a lot nicer. Uh-oh, what did I just hit? Uh-oh. There we go. Let's do that. Yes, extrusion is the other best friend of these type of miniatures. What's interesting is the... Oh, no, that's right. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. So what if I add vent detail in the back here, and I can kind of turn this thing up here into some access doors with like vents in them. And I do periodically use real military vehicles for doing some of the reference with some of the designs. But right now I'm just kind of making stuff up in my head, because I kind of did that already with the sort of sketches you see back there. Even though that I feel that turret, yeah, I definitely changed the back of the vehicle when I first sketched this thing up. That turret is really far back, and I definitely moved it a little more forward, which is a bit more common with modern day main battle tanks. So let me now do this. So that little trick I did right there. Oh, it's gonna, let me do something. Before I do any beveling, like when I did over here, the little trick I just did is Control A, choose scale. Because in Blender, if you've done any manipulations by scaling the object, if you try to do things like sculpting, or also if you try to bevel the edges using the Control B bevel tool, before you apply scale, the mathematical order of things in Blender gets a little screwy, and you're going to get a result different than what you normally want. So that's one of those little random tricks that I do from time to time. What I want, there we go. Let's do that. I think it'd be okay if I just extrude this up a little bit. We scale it in, and that kind of gets the idea that it's some sort of access door-like thing. And you can see how just adding little bits of geometry like that are quick and simple, it really does make your model look a lot better, a lot more detailed. And it doesn't add a whole lot to the print time. It kind of does, because when you get layers, the more like vertical, what's what I want to say? The more like, if you look down at the model, the more space you see tends to increase the print times, and you gotta, I think it does, but you know. I'm just running my mouth right now. I probably shouldn't just do those random things. I think that's how it works. Like if you look down the top of the model and you see a lot more like space, does that make sense? I think so. I don't know. Sloped angles can add more print time, because then you've got like multiple top and bottom layers as to like just a single flat thing, but it's really not that much time, and it looks a lot cooler. Okay, so let me add something that kind of looks like hinges over here. So the idea is the doors can swing open if they need to. This would be a way of removing the entire power pack of the tank out. Actually, let's see, how do I want to handle that? Let me start by creating Let's get a cylinder going over here. Why I have my model so far away from the origin, I honestly don't know. That's why I keep having to drag the objects all the way back over. There's probably a story there, but I don't know what it is. Do I want a more detailed cylinder? I probably should. Let me do that again. By default, you only have like 32 vertices on your cylinders in Blender, and for a miniature like this, 64 just looks a little bit nicer. You can often see the 32 when you get to some of the larger miniatures. So 64 makes it look a little bit more like it's actually rounded, or that is actually a round surface. 0 minus 90, 0. And then once I get this thing in place, I'll join it to my mirrored object, the engine door compartment, and then it should just transfer the mirror over and we'll see what happens. I think Blender works like that. There's a lot of things like that I don't necessarily do all that often, so it's a certain amount of, well, I think I remember it working that way. Let's see, we can just get a little goofy like that. Oh, that's definitely a little bit too big, I think. Yeah, let's reduce that in size a bit. Maybe a little bit smaller. I don't actually need it to be covering up the bevel. I want that bit of detail to be seen. So we'll do one there, then I'll do two smaller ones, or yeah, two smaller ones out of one large one. That looks to be about kind of equal space along the door. I think if you press, oh, hey, hi Bammy2. I think if you press Control or Shift when something it snaps to 45 degrees, probably it does. I just kind of got in the habit of, if I want something like at a certain angle, I just rotate it to approximately the angle, and then I kind of look at the numbers over here in the rotation side, and I just punch them in. It's just kind of how I do things, but there definitely is some sort of option to go ahead and like snap the various things to certain positions in the grid. Actually, hold on, don't do that. Now, let me see, I'm going to join these two together, and then I should be able to join that like that, and look at that, there we go. There's the mirror modifier kicked in. I think what I'm going to do now is add some grating. Door handles right here, and then some grating. What I actually do for the door handles is kind of make them inset, just because it works better with printing, even though it might make more sense to have like a little hatch you pull open. Do any of the vehicles actually have that? No, they're all, I just have them inset, like it just detail, and it is, yeah, no. So let me just go ahead and create those quickly. And for that, I'm just going to do a Boolean operation. That looks about, is that right? So let's call this guy engine door handle. Here's our engine door. It's always helpful to name your stuff in Blender, even though clearly up here I've got cube 000 through cube 56. How about we call this guy side vent dot L. Because I gotta name them eventually if they're gonna be separate pieces for printing purposes. And wait, no, R. It is R. I always name left and right for these vehicles if you're looking from behind for whatever reason. It's just the arbitrary thing that I decided to do. What is this guy called? Side dash vent R. So let's go over here, and this guy is side dash vent dot L. All right. So let's take this thing and do a Boolean modifier here. Whoops-a-doodle, what did I just do? Okay, we're good. I selected 5 objects there, and that's not exactly what I want to do. Okay, so it's there. However, I need to change the order of these modifiers because I want the Boolean to occur before the mirror modifier. That looks good. Let me go ahead and just apply that, hide the handle, and that's looking pretty good right there. Let me see here. Let me bring over, actually, let me grab the Avalon right here. Yeah, the equatorial compact vehicles have like a grate in the back where it's like just horizontal slits. It's not like a grid or anything, so I'm going to keep that same design from vehicle to vehicle. So let me just add some here and some up here, and we will call that good. And then let's see here. I think I'll jump to working on the turret here in just a bit. Let's see here. That looks pretty good. That's right, can't do that view. Keep doing that. I gotta do the inverse of view 3. Looks about right. So this piece here will also be just built into this particular hull. I won't have to glue it on because that'll make your life so much easier. I think the back piece you're gonna have to glue on. Otherwise, you're going to get some weird support stuff going on, and you could do it, but I don't know. When you get support material with tiny details, yeah, the results are not particularly great. All right, so let's do that like that. So what I want to do now is have, let's see here. I need, I'm counting the little divisions I'm putting in there. How many do I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got 12. I need an odd number. So let me go down to 11, make it a little bit less detailed. Because that way I can have an odd number that are extending out, and then an even number that are blank, and that will look correctly. If there is an even number of segments here, you would have like an extra thing hanging off. If you turn on backface call, oh, that's a good question, yes. I'm thinking, I probably could turn on backface call because I don't ever look at the back of, like the back side of any of my pieces intentionally, because usually with miniature modeling, the outside faces are always out. Now I gotta remember where that sits. That's a good question. There's like, wait, okay, there it is. Let me turn on and see what happens. Huh, okay. That didn't do what I thought it was supposed to do. If I go up here, there's an option for use backface calling to hide the back side of faces. I wonder if that works with reference images, because I'm not sure if the backface calling effect works with reference images. It might, but obviously it's not at the moment with what I got turned on. I'll look into that some more. I'll play around with it a bit more. I'm not sure if that applies to those reference images, but it's a good idea to look into. Thank you. I will certainly have to try that sometime. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and let's extend that out like that. And then I'm going to just use a mirror modifier to finish it off. So I'm going to move this thing roughly to the center. And then let's add a mirror modifier to this guy. Let me move the whole piece to where I want it. It's not too bad. That looks pretty close to center. That's good enough for me. Then let me jump back into our edit mode here. And now is merge? Yeah, merge is clipping. Turn that on. So therefore I just basically run into the center and that's all that happens. So that looks pretty good for that guy. I'm going to duplicate this thing. I might use it in a moment again. Okay. Whoops-a-doodle. Let's see here, to make my life a little bit easier, I'm just going to reuse this piece for the back grate. I'm probably just going to have to chop off a part of it, but I'll see. Stupid face. I'm also going to make it a little bit thicker, since it's going to have to be a standalone 3D printed part. Oh, let's see here. Nope, nope. Huh. So if I want to attach it straight to this piece, I got to make it really small. Yeah, why not? That'll look pretty good. Let me knock off all that. No, I said delete Blender. Oh, wait, too much. Leave that in place and then hit delete. I'm just curious. Since I have this sitting here, let's turn backface calling on. Yeah, okay. So you can see there, because I can see inside the model with some of the back faces visible. If I play around with backface calling, you can turn on and off. You can see stuff appears and disappears in there. So this option here probably doesn't apply to reference images. Maybe there is something that does apply to reference images. I will have to look around at that. I don't know, maybe if you click on them. If there, let's see, is there anything fancy about them, like side? Oh wait, what if I do front? Oh, there we go. Okay, that's how you can do it. So if you click on the reference image and you go to the data properties here, that looks like a little image, you can choose on side, you have both front or back, and whether it appears on both the front and back face or just the front or back face. In this case, if I chose just the front and I jump, oh, 1 second, jump back, jump the other side, now I can see through it. So let me do the same thing for that one. Ah, cool. All right, cool. That's a helpful little feature. All right, so back to modeling this piece here. Whoops-a-doodle. That's not what I wanted. I forgot. The mirror modifier turned on and something a little screwy happened. Okay, where's our main hall? Let me bring my data point out here. And then what I need to do, that's not what I was thinking. Oops-a-doodle. There's a lot of just hitting the wrong button when I use Blender. You don't normally see all this stuff. So let me just select the back side. So what I want to do is, bring these pieces or bring these vertices out so it's basically pretty close to sitting on the thing. That way I can get an idea of what the final 3D printed piece will look like, which I think that's pretty good right there. All right, so that is about all I'm thinking for the engine, cooling, maintenance, access area. So let me start working on the turret of the tank. What is it actually supposed to look like? That's a darn good question. I want to say, yeah, I designed this guy to have a funny, like, offset shape to it, which is, I guess, is fine. It's probably based on something or another I saw look cool. Okay. So let's do this to make life a little bit easier for me. Let me just turn this reference image on the side. And then I can kind of roughly build what I'm seeing. Oops-a-doodle, that's the wrong button again. And then I will scale it when I get it on the actual vehicle. So let's see, we've got that extends out like that. We go back a little ways. And then this side, though, let me bring these back in a little bit closer. Extend this down a bit more, in which I bring this out just a little bit more. Oh, is that supposed to be like the back shelf, I wonder? Yeah, I'll add that on extra. No, it's an odd looking shape. Could be kind of cool. Is that a rocket pod on the top of the turret? Probably not. No, that's intended to be the smoke launchers. So you can pop smoke in the tank and then GTFO if it needs to. It does look like a rocket pod, though. Does it have... Let's see here. That's probably be most of the smoke launchers. I have some being placed on the front of the vehicle. I haven't modeled them on yet, so I might put like 1 or 2 right here, and then put like 3 of them along the top of the turret, so that way, in theory, the tank could go ahead and pop smoke in any direction and take off. Okay. I'm not sure if I really like that turret shape too much. I don't know. I'll run with it for right now. But just because I don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily have to be changed. There have been some ugly vehicles in the history of the militaries. Some really ugly, ugly vehicles. That's clearly a little bit too big, but I'll fix that in a moment here. So one thing about the Fractured Colony tanks is that there's no crew in the turrets. So they can actually have a little bit smaller turrets than modern main battle tanks. You kind of starting to see this with like the Russian T-14 Armada on paper does this. I'm not sure if we've ever seen that thing in combat to know if it actually does what it's supposed to do, but that's how it's designed. And I think there's other plans for these other nations' tanks. So I kind of like that aspect. So that's why I can get away with some smaller turrets with the Fractured Colony vehicles, because they kind of have that idea to them. The trick is, though, you still got to have it set up such that the main gun can elevate and kind of make it look like the main gun elevates. Maybe you got to move the position of the turret a little bit. Let me jump back over here to the full camera for a second, because I actually made a change to the bracer after the Kickstarter was done. This was the model that you saw in the Kickstarter, but the production model's a tiny bit different. And it was actually so that, in theory, if the cannon was elevated, though with this miniature you can't elevate the cannon, it would actually be going down into the body of the tank where the main gun should be. Where this one, if you elevated it, it would like, how does that work? It doesn't. So I'm going to design all the new tanks to be that way. And I also, like with the Avalon over here, you can elevate the main gun. It's because this is an artillery piece. And I want to try to integrate that feature in with the pit bull. So if you want to elevate the gun a little bit, like you got a slightly longer range attack to model it that way, that would be kind of cool to do. So I'm going to try to do that, and we will see how it goes. Otherwise, the rockets would exhaust into the ammo storage. Yes, they would, and that would probably be a very, very bad thing. Cooking off your own ammo storage is generally a long-term poor strategy when it comes to tank-on-tank combat. Okay, so let's put that... Oh, nope, redo that. Let's see here. Now, one thing I do need to make sure is that there is a way that the turret can be rotated such that the breech can kind of go into the turret basket, but downward elevation is going to be garbage on a turret that thin, which is kind of important if you want to hide behind a hill and shoot over the top of it. Oh boy. I see, yes. That might be going a little bit too in-depth tactically for the amount of thought I'm putting in these miniatures right now, but those are good things to think about. Okay, let me see here. One thing I do want to think about, though, is that this turret can rotate in such a way that you can actually get out of the vehicle. So, like, if the turret's rotated like this, the crew can actually get out, because that would be a good thing. That is slightly annoying that you have to or rotate the turret like that, just because then you can't really have tanks like right. I don't know, maybe you have to have a funny parking job, but once again, there have been some crappy design decisions for tanks in the past, so maybe that's what's going on here. There is something to be said about thinking about all the design aspects of a military vehicle, and then you realize they don't always think about that by the time they get into combat. What I would like to do, though, is the main gun, basically the axis or the line of fire of the main gun should be lined up at the pivot point of the turret. Otherwise, you're going to, I mean, it's computer math. You can do it. So let me actually do something just quickly here. Let's do that. So right around there about is where the turret should actually have its center of mass, or center of rotation. Let me change things just a tiny bit then. Bring that side out a bit, and then we'll bring this side in a bit. So you kind of still get that weird offset turret design, but it's a little bit more centrally lined up now. Let me think here for a moment. What if you rotated the turret to the rear? Also, you set the center of the turret object to this. I think that's what I just did. Set the center of the turret object to the center of the ring. Because this little line here is going to be the line of the main cannon. Let me make the front of the turret be a little bit less sticky outish. That's a thing. Make it not stick out quite so far. That way I can kind of add something here where like the essentially where like the gun carriage or the gun barrel, the breech, thank you brain, where the breech the cannon can kind of hide in magically and not interfere with the rotation of things like the handles here on the hatches or stuff like that. Because ideally I want the turret to be placed such that it can be facing in any rotation, whatever. I think the turret is still a bit too forward for the rotation to work out, eh? It could be. And I could try moving it back a bit and see what happens. I don't know, I'll start there. There's a good, with these miniatures, there's oh, center of the object. There's a good, they go through about a handful of minor revisions from when I first designed them in Blender, mainly for assembly purposes, as well as just, allow you to model things. So there's a good chance what exactly you see here is not going to be 100% the final thing. So I'm just going to start here. Let's do this. We can try moving this back a little bit though. If we move that back a bit, and then we can bring it back forward. So that should change the pivot point of the turret. Yeah, so the turret, there's less stuff sticking out of the front of the turret now, which, I don't know, I think that'll work. I don't know, I'll give it a shot, see how it turns out. So what I'm gonna do right now though, let me go to the side view, is I want to add something here so that it looks like the breech is being hidden. So something like that. And now let's call this guy the gun turret here, because that's what it is. And we have the turret ring down here. So if I do a Boolean operation and I remove the turret ring, not build, that's not what I want to do, wrong button. Boolean. What I should get is, okay, so I got the front kind of breech hiding spot, we're going to call it, the breech cover, is now cut out from the turret ring, which is good. But for 3D printing purposes now, I have to make this little, let's see here, hold on. Oh, did I just, I guess that works. I accidentally cut it out in the entire miniature, but that's, hold on, I don't want to do that. That makes life more annoying. Okay, what I really want to do, let me put the turret just resting right on top there. So so now I don't have the turret ring cutting into the main body of the turret, just up in the front here. But I do want to make this slightly larger just because when it comes to 3D printing time, 3D printing adds, you know, a little bit of volume to the object and they don't go together quite right. So something like that is probably good enough. And that should also then at least act as enough of a guide that the person can put the turret on right, and it should be essentially, I think in my head that makes sense, that should be enough so that the turret will be essentially in the right spot no matter where around or what angle they make it end up facing for their modeling purposes. We'll find out though. All right, let's see here. What was I doing? Oh, I need to just clean that up a little bit. When I scaled this piece down here, whoops a doodle, I moved that up too. I was apparently had that selected. It changed, you know, the scale of the height and things with it. So let me just clean that up quickly. Just flatten everything out the way it should. All right, cool. Okay, so let me see here. From this 3D view, it looks like I was intended to have the armor of the tank slightly sloped. I apparently was decking out smoke launchers everywhere, which is a little bit unnecessary, but why not? There we go, it's a little bit of slope to the top of the armor. That looks pretty good. Let me cut out the spot for the main gun. Oh, you know what's nice is actually by moving the turret back there, the guys can open up the hatches. Can they? Oh, pretty close. What if let me just move the hatches forward a tiny bit and that solves that problem. There we go. Now the hatches should, in theory, close enough to reality, be able to open, the crew can get out. Without having to rotate the turret in a weird direction, which, you know, that's a nice feature to have. That is indeed a nice feature. All right, time to start working on the main cannon here. I'm going to cut out a spot for the miniature to where you can then angle the cannon. So let me work on that first. What I bet I could do, because like with the Avalon over here, it's kind of got a very tight press fit that lets you put the cannon in at any angle you want, which is kind of cool for an artillery vehicle, because artillery. I could probably have some optional inserts that you can glue onto the end of the barrel for this tank that would just basically like fix the barrel at maybe 3 different angles. And I bet that'd be kind of an interesting idea to try. I mean, you could do it this way. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Might as well just go ahead and do it, keep it the same way as the Avalon. There's no reason to drastically change how one vehicle works compared to the other. Just from a purpose of assembly, it just makes people's lives easier. All right, so let's call this the cannon cutout. And we can go ahead and just Boolean operation it away. Cannon cutout. That looks about right. Apply. And then let's hide it. And you're left with that. Oh, hold on. You can see the turret ring in there. I think I'll go with that. We'll see how that ends up looking. Okay, main cannon time. So if I designed this to have these, quote, I don't know what they are. They're just little extra ribs along the main barrel. I did that with a bracer because science fiction, and I'll probably do the same kind of thing here because once again, science fiction. They printed fine without supports on the bracer. I might design them a little bit different to make them slightly larger on this vehicle. Let me grab the bracer over here. Of course, let me jump to my large view. So I'm talking about, see here, if I hold this guy up, yeah, you can kind of see them. These little ribs that run along the main gun, I don't know what they're there for. Like I said, science fiction. So something similar will be added to the pit bull here, but it's going to be a round barrel instead of a triangular barrel because this is a little bit more of a conventionally designed tank. All right, let's get our cylinder out here. Oh, what do you know? The Avalon's sitting over here. This is an earlier version of the Avalon, actually. I changed it a little bit. Since this, I must have imported this because I probably brought some common parts over, like the tread. The treads, I bet, are the same basic design from the Avalon as they are for the Pitbull. They were between the Bracer and the Archer, though the sizing was a little bit different, and it's probably the case here, but they're the same basic thing, because, you know, it's just easier to do it that way than the design, you know, multiple tread systems that just look the same. It's a little bit big, but, you know. I'm not entirely sure how big the final barrel is going to be in this guy. They are definitely oversized compared to how they would be in reality, because you want the little, you want to be able to see the opening of basically the main cannon firing. So that's why they're a little bit larger on the miniatures than they should be in reality. So I'll probably make this whole thing be similar in size to the Bracer, but I'm going to do that once I've got it all modeled up and before I do the initial 3D printing. So I don't know, is that about the right length? Let's see, where's it on the Bracer? Yeah, the Bracer sticks out maybe a tiny bit further, but not by a whole lot. Okay, so let's go ahead and call this guy the main cannon. And we will give it some extra details. One, so you can actually, you know, see down the bore of the cannon. So let's call this the main cannon bore. And then a miniature modeler's favorite operation, the Boolean operation, because why not? That's just, Boolean operations are just fantastic for adding details. Let's see, now I want main cannon bore here. That looks about right. Let's apply that and hide our bore. And there we go. I might have to change some of the sizing when I get to the 3D printing it, but for now that's good enough. Actually, let me bring the bore back, because I'm now going to use this. We're going to call it a cooling rib, because if you need to, in something for science fiction, if you need to figure out why this detailed, the answer is cooling. These are going to become the little ribs I was talking about just a little bit ago. And what I'm going to do now is make them slightly larger than the main cannon. Let's stubby them up a little bit. That's a word. Okay, mirror modifier, so they're going to look identical. Let's see, is this along the y-axis? No, z-axis? There we go. Z-axis is the local axis. So that way they're going to be like, the spacing is going to be equal from the two sides. Because what I'm going to do is have them kind of meld into the bore like that. Make it a tiny bit bigger. And the reason why I'm doing that by having them kind of melt into the bore is that'll help with 3D printing. And when you print this thing out vertically, the layers, you know, first layer will be pretty much in line with the main cannon, then they'll get a little bit thicker the next layer. And that should allow you to print this thing without relying on support materials. I want to make this a little bit smaller, so let's have like that. But then let's move that back. Okay, and now let me apply the mirror modifier, and then I can use the array modifier to go ahead and create several of them equally spaced Relative offset, let's do Z at like 1.5. We'll try that, see how it looks. I don't know. I'll give it a shot. You know what might be kind of cool to do? Let me drop down to 3 and just increase the spacing. I think that would look a little bit better. What I think I will do, though, for the gun barrel here itself, let me do that. That'll make the actual, let's see here. I'll make the actual like muzzle section just a little bit larger. Maybe that'll look kind of cool. So it'll be similar in diameter to the cooling things. Let's do that, and I don't know, let's see how that looks. I don't know, I'm not against that. We'll give it a shot. Nothing here is permanent. If I think it ends up looking like crap, well, that's not what the final miniature is going to look like. This vehicle is still quite preliminary. I haven't actually 3D printed any of it yet. Let me make this piece part of the hull and see what happens. I could, uh-oh. Sorry, I got distracted by a random piece that I never finished on the vehicle. So let me make that part of the hull. So it's going to be hopefully attached for you, and the support material won't make your life miserable. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay. I am noticing, okay, I guess that's just the blender effect. This little wavy garbageness where the cooling thing's attached to the main cannon is probably just Blender poorly rendering things. I don't think it'll look like that when you 3D print. If you do, well, that's a different problem, then I'll have to deal with it at that time. Okay. So main cannon's back. Now the last thing I need to do is merge the main cannon with the turret itself. How do I want to handle that? I actually kind of like the idea I had a little bit ago. When you zoom out, yeah, when you zoom out and get the depth buffer becomes insufficient to get Z buffer fighting. Yeah, weird things can happen when you zoom out. Oh yeah, there you go. You can definitely see it there. When you're really zoomed out in Blender with lots of certain large objects, this is actually a surprisingly large object by Blender standards because it's technically meters instead of millimeters. You get weird artifacts like that happening. That's probably what you're seeing, you know, when just on a smaller scale with those interfaces right there. I've had this happen before in renders. Oh, what was it? One of the Caladagia games. It was the cover, I think it was the cover, was the cover art to Albion Under Siege for Fleet Commander, where I had just a dozen ships in the background and they're really far away. And the renderer was doing this to them because they're such big, physically big models, not in terms of detail necessarily, but, you know, physical size of them. And it looked awful, and I had to scale everything down by like 100%, and it made things, or like by 100 times, and made things happy. Okay. Anyway, let me finish up with this. So the one advantage to controlling the exact angles you can attach the main cannon at is I can hide it a little bit better and make it look like it's more integrated into the turret. So it's more of a visual, do I want it to look a little bit nicer, or do I want to give people more modeling options? I'm going to go with, I'm going to make it look a little bit nicer. Yeah, I could probably bring the far plane in closer. When I opened this file up in Blender, I had to set it to, I think, 500, because 100 was, oh, I set it to 5,000. It's probably a little too intense. Because, oh, not 100. It's probably set to 1,000 by default. Now, yeah, it's a little bit not enough. So let me change this guy to like 2,000. Maybe that'll help a little bit. I don't know, it doesn't really bother me though. I'm mostly looking at the model up close, so I'm not seeing that weird stuff too often, and I know what it is, so it doesn't scare me. So let's do that. Join that to the, hold on, is that right? It's not, it's off by a little bit. Okay. I thought that didn't look quite aligned correctly. So let me just set the center of origin for everything. And then let me go ahead and put that there. And now I can go ahead, actually join this guy to that guy. We're going to make some adjustments here so that it fits incorrectly. Oh, careful, careful, careful. This guy's not aligned with the turret though, is it? I just need to make it a little bit smaller so that it will fit in there. And then I'm going to add some attachments to the back so that you can kind of attach it at different angles. Yep, right there. Clip start, clip end. Yeah, I was playing around with those earlier. Oh, okay. So what I need to do here, let me just duplicate those particular vertices and extrude them out a tiny bit. All right, so and then they're going to become their own thing. So we have main cannon. We'll call this main cannon. I don't know. Let's do main cannon attachment point. I can spell it right. So okay, yeah. Let's see here. So what I can do then, this would be like your standard, we'll call this main cannon attachment point flat. And I will create two other versions of it with slightly different angles. And whoever's building the model can choose which one of the three pads they want to use. And then that'll allow them to mount the barrel or the cannon at a different angle. So let's go ahead and do that. There's one, two of them. Now let's just start with the first one. And if I just take this guy and go like that, I'll get a little bit of elevation. So let's call this main attachment point elevation 1. I suppose you could offer 3 barrels and let people choose which one to 3D print out, but if the barrel is tipping too much, it's going to require support material. I don't know. I could always make that as an add-on. It's like eventually, yeah, if you really want to do it this way, you can. The only problem though is I'm thinking, because if the support material attached to the bottom of the barrel, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But if the barrel is being elevated and the way it'd be leaning on the 3D printed plate, the support material would be attached to the top of the barrel, which would be really visible. There's probably some little trick I can do there to fiddle around with it and make it so that it I don't know. Lots of little tricks. Okay, so let me just out of curiosity, let me see how this works. So let's just, I'm going to just duplicate the barrel and just to save it off somewhere so that I know that I have it in case I really hose things up here. Oh, hold on. Let me go ahead and do that and that. Same thing here. And what I think I'm going to do, also to make rotation a little bit easier for myself, I'm going to actually change the center of mass, or the center of the object in Blender here, to be the very end of it. Okay, so let's see how this all looks. So I know what the standard one looks like. Let me drop, that's the super high elevation one. Let me put the slightly elevated one into place, and then I will see how it looks. I just kind of arbitrarily chose the angle, so I'm like, I don't know. Okay, that's not too bad. That's a slightly elevated barrel. And then I imagine the other one would just be a little bit more. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool. Having us. Now, how does that look down there? What I probably should do is just drop this section down a bit so that it kind of looks like it's, there we go. So that looks like it's in kind of hiding the breach a little bit better. Oh, but now that's, oh shoot, that's going to change the size of this thing in here. Darn it. There's a little piece. Come on. You're in here somewhere. There it is. There it is. Okay. All right, so let's keep that way. I'm gonna have to redo these now. Okay, I'm gonna finish up this part of the tank, and then it's almost 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna probably call it a night here in just a little bit. But let me just finish up this last little piece now that I've resized things and made my life more annoying. And then we'll call it. We'll call the stream done here in just a few minutes. Oh, hold on. Duplicate it. So this one, so let me hide that one. This is the duplicated one. So this one's now elevation, let's call it flat. And then let me go bring the original back, hide this one, select this guy. Again. We'll duplicate it one more time, hide the original. This one's now elevation 2. And I am going to move that back a little bit more. And let's just see what angle I get this time. I wouldn't mind having a little bit more of some elevation. So let me just take this out. Move that like that just a little bit. All right, I think there we go, a little bit more of a higher elevation. All right, so I've got those pieces all done. The turret's obviously missing a whole bunch of detail, but that's pretty much all I have left to do on the model at the moment. Also, you notice there's no reactive armor panels on this side, because they're going to be 3D printed parts you glue on, so I don't need to modify or model them over there. All right, this guy is part of the next Kickstarter. The plan is probably to get these guys available for the crowdfunding campaign, let's say second half of January to end of January. I don't have an exact time frame yet, and it's going to be the pit bull you see here. The Avalons, let me actually bring up the proper large video. There we go. It's going to be the pit bull that I've been working on here. It's going to be the Avalon self-powered artillery that you got right here. It's just your run-of-the-mill kind of giant artillery unit. And then, of course, the Lionel class little drone, hunter-killer drone that's designed to be fired. We'll see if it happens. I may go ahead and include some sort of like modified version of the Archer missile pod here that carries these guys on his back so he can launch them instead of the standard artillery missiles he has. I also might make some sort of a mount so that you can strap them on to like the bracer or the Griffin, sort of like an attached tow missile. Because how these things are intended to be used is they are launched such that they pretty much start attacking the enemy forces right as the main battle tanks are just getting in range. So it creates a lot of chaos and confusion in the enemy lines, so that there can, when your rush tanks are rushing the enemy, you got a little bit of increased survivability, because obviously there's usually a defensive advantage in such a tank-on-tank combat like that. So that's kind of what these guys are designed for. And they're AI powered to lock on and target things like the treads of the vehicles, as well as knocking out, maybe if they can get in between the turret, to knock out the turret mobility, take out some of the optics and other visual little sensors and doodads that sit on top of main battle tanks that are quite vulnerable. And that is kind of how they fit into the story. So anyway, thank you guys all for watching. My name is Jason. I'm the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield, as well as Fractured Colony over at fracturedcolony.com, which at the moment are just a handful of miniatures. I will be expanding that out this year. Oh, my sketchbook is sitting over there. I have the first aircraft, the first fighter carrier-based jump jet fighters for the Coordinator Alliance. I designed those in between Christmas Eve services at church a few days ago. And but I'll show those guys off sometime else. That'll probably be the third Kickstarter. It'll be some aircraft, anti-aircraft defenses. But you can get these 3 miniatures, which are 3D printable STL files, over at fracturedcolony.com. That'll just redirect you to Etsy, and you can pick them up there. And they're designed to be printed on FDM FFF 3D printers without a whole lot of support. Okay, that is about it. So thank you guys all for watching. I might do another live stream sometime soon, and I don't really have anything planned, but if that's the case, I'll see you then. Otherwise, Wednesday is the next scheduled video, where we are talking about some of the firearms, well, one of the firearms in particular, from the old War Machine Tabletop Miniatures game. All right, guys, have a good night.